I'm Kaylia Warren, the writer and director of Expatriates.
And I'm Martise Hill, the producer.
So we're going to show you a little sizzle from the proof of concept I made for Expatriates, which I produced, directed, and I actually shot DP'd all of the second unit motorcycle footage as well. So we've all seen the love story of a young woman falling hard for the bad boy. Usually it ends with her reforming him, and he kind of rescinds his womanizing ways, and they live happily ever after. He just needed the right woman in order to make him change. With Expatriates, I would like to tell a story that I think far more women know to be true. I would like to follow that young woman both in and then out of love, out of the head rush, and into recognizing her own self-worth and independence. As a young woman, I know that I would have really liked to see a story like that, to see that you can have this exciting infatuation that doesn't work out, and that's okay. You can grow from it. The initial inspiration for the context for Expatriates came when I was working in Uganda a few years ago. I met 3 young men who were actually traveling by motorcycle from Scotland to Cape Town, and I thought that that was such an incredible cinematic journey. So I thought it'd be really interesting to place a woman of color at the center of a narrative like that, and to color it from the perspective that I had experienced East Africa from. I had studied abroad in Tanzania back in college, and I'd felt this overwhelming sense of isolation. Among my classmates, Western customs and idea and religion would just be referred to with this unquestioned superiority. You would have 19-year-old American volunteers talking down to middle-aged Tanzanians. And on the other hand, I was considered white, or Mzungu, to most Africans because of my skin tone, which is in big contrast to America, where if you have any African ancestry, you're considered black. And so this was very jarring to me, and I felt very alone in my perspective wherever I went. So that brought me to write the character of Kenzie. She's 23 years old, and she's traveling alone from Egypt to Cape Town by dirt bike on a photography project that's potentially life-changing. She's profiling the identity of each African country she visits, and she's really careful to avoid a white savior narrative in doing so, and to not exploit her subjects. She's not super comfortable in her own skin, so she tends to keep to herself. Her journey is interrupted by another motorcycle rider, Tade. He's a charming volunteer doctor on holiday. He's half Brit, half Pakistani, and he's half Brit, half Pakistani. He's been raised Muslim, but he leads a very secular Western life. After some reluctance from Kenzie, he persuades her to ride with him until his holiday is over. So, along their journey, they meet his white, very glamorous American girlfriend and her wealthy friends. Kenzie feels super out of place among them because they kind of condescend to the local Africans. But at the same time, Tade seems different. However, when he makes a move on Kenzie, she's really disappointed to realize just how easily he cheats on his girlfriend. We learn that Kenzie is a virgin and that she's not super used to male attention. But at the same time, she has a very high detector and keeps her guard up with Tade. And as their journey continues, she's impressed by how easily he can sort of code switch between Westerners and the local Muslim villagers they meet. He's equally impressed by how much of a badass Kenzie is and how independently she can handle herself. So as their bond deepens, Kenzie's balls break down, and she loses her virginity to him before he goes back on assignment. On her travels alone, she realizes just how much she misses Tade now, and she needs him, in contrast to how okay she was being on her own before. So she tries basically to become the girl that she thinks Tade wants. She changes her appearance, she becomes more sexually confident. In order to gain followers, she takes the kind of exotic photos of Africans she was once really against. When her and Tade reunite, she prioritizes his pleasure, essentially, so they don't use a condom. In the morning, she finds out that he's back with his ex. Heartbroken, she continues on alone. A few weeks later, she has a casual hookup, but it's different than with Tade in that she prioritizes her own pleasure, and she learns how to ask for what she wants. Then, we find out that she's pregnant, and it's Tade's. Since abortion is illegal where she currently is, she calls her mom, and she considers going home and leaving this project uncompleted. But no, she's not going to do that. She reaches out to Tade, and she asks for his help. Before he gives her the medication, he pleads that he could do the right thing if she wanted him to. But Kenzie is realizing that there's so much more out there for her other than this man, that this man is not someone that she wants to be tethered to for the rest of her life. So she takes the medication and she rides off into the mountains on her own. So there's a huge amount of diversity in women's experiences with abortion, which we rarely see depicted on screen, especially in relation to how common it actually is. In this case, we're not ending the film on a down note. We're ending with the woman truly realizing her self-worth and being okay to continue on her journey alone.
Expatriates possesses all the assets we look for in a good film: dynamic characters, compelling plot, and a filmmaker with a sharp and committed vision. Kaylea's courageous efforts to go produce the proof of concept by herself in South Africa was all we needed to commit ourselves to helping her tell this compelling story. Expatriates addresses two issues our industry is currently grappling to solve. One, more on-screen representation that reflects the world we live in, and two, more opportunities for underrepresented filmmakers to tell their distinctive stories. Expatriates, we believe, will open the door for other narratives, untold narratives, seeking a commercial release within the realms of modern independent distribution models. Here's our production team. My producing partner, Julius Pryor, and I have extensive experience producing micro-budget features and excel at leading lean and efficient crews and telling those stories on time and under budget. Our producing colleague, Tim Wu, executive producer of Ilium Pictures, has been working with Kaylea on this project since its genesis. He helped her produce the proof of concept. He has extensive experience producing commercials and narrative films as well. Collectively, our films have played at top international film festivals and gone on to secure distribution after those premieres. And finally, the newest addition to our team, Caroline Ngesa. She's a line producer based in Kenya that runs Africa Snowman. We've partnered with her to realize a 25 to 30-day filming schedule between Ethiopia and Tanzania. Her and her team have extensive experience coordinating logistically challenging shoots. She was a line producer on Rafiki, the 2018 Kenyan drama that was an official selection at Cannes.
So I have a huge amount of doc experience shooting throughout Africa, including in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Mozambique, and in Nigeria. In shooting the proof of concept for Expatriates, I actually just worked with a small 4-person crew. So I know how to be quick and nimble within shooting constraints and shooting in potentially tough locations. Visually and tonally, even though the story is realistic, this will still feel like this intoxicating, epic love story. So we're going to pair the music that Kenzie listens to in her own soundtrack with the music heard diegetically in her travels. So that means sparing like spectacular East African landscapes like this with 80s synth pop. And at the bars where she drinks with Tade, that means pairing East African reggae and cheesy American songs with that. And essentially that was all the kind of music that I heard in my own travels. And so Expatriates is a story that I know women can relate to across all cultures. But for some reason, it's a story that we still haven't seen on screen before. And we are here to change that.
We have complete and unwavering faith that Kayleea Warren will be an innovative thread in the great tapestry of independent film. And we welcome you to join us on this journey.
Thank you.